Welcome. Tonight, we invite you into a peaceful corner of the universe. In the beginning, long before the rise of the Imperium or the coming of Robot Guilliman, the world of Makridge was a planet rich in resources and culture. Located in the far reaches of the eastern fringe, it was a world of great natural beauty, with towering mountain ranges, fertile plains, and vast oceans. Its people were industrious and pragmatic, having developed a civilization that valued order, discipline, and self-reliance. The early rulers of Makridge were noble warlords, each governing their own portion of the planet, bound by a loose code of honor that kept violence at bay. However, despite its outward appearance of civility, there was always a simmering tension beneath the surface, as the great houses and factions vied for power and control over the land. Makridge society was deeply stratified, divided between the wealthy nobility and the laboring classes. The ruling class enjoyed the fruits of the planet's abundant resources, building vast estates, monuments, and cities that spoke to their wealth and influence. Among these early leaders were the ruling dynasties that controlled Makridge's political and military might. Each dynasty claimed the right to rule, and though they kept a tenuous peace, their rivalries were fierce, as were their ambitions. Makridge had always been a militaristic world. Its early history was marked by wars of conquest and territorial disputes, each dynasty striving to build empires that would endure through the ages. They trained their warriors from a young age, instilling in them a sense of duty, loyalty, and the importance of strength. Makridge's armies became some of the most well-trained and disciplined forces on any world in the sector, and its military tradition was one that would be passed down for generations. However, this constant militarization came at a cost. While the ruling families prospered, the common folk often lived in poverty, toiling in mines or factories to keep the war machine running. It was during this time that the ruling factions began to build what would later become known as the Twin Cities of Makridge, which would grow into the planet's political and economic centers. These cities were grand in scale and design, reflecting the ambition and wealth of the ruling elite. Great spires reached toward the sky, and the people of Makridge took pride in their architectural marvels, which became symbols of their culture's strength and endurance. The Twin Cities would one day become the seats of Guilliman's power, but in these early days, they stood as monuments to the old aristocracy. Yet, despite the splendor of Makridge's cities and its wealth, the planet was not without its problems. The economic disparity between the nobility and the laboring masses was a growing issue. While the aristocracy lived in luxury, the common people were often left to struggle for survival. This imbalance created unrest, and discontent began to simmer in the hearts of the planet's population. Laborers worked tirelessly in factories, harvesting the resources that the noble houses used to fund their lavish lifestyles and military campaigns. It was only a matter of time before this inequality would lead to conflict. While the nobles remained focused on their political maneuvering, there were signs of change on the horizon. In the more remote regions of Makridge, far from the Twin Cities, whispers of rebellion began to take root. These early stirrings of revolution came from those who had grown tired of being used as tools by the ruling class, and though their efforts were small and disorganized, they were the first sparks of a flame that would one day threaten to consume the old order. Makridge's rulers were not blind to these developments, but they believed in the strength of their armies and their system of governance. After all, they had ruled the planet for centuries, and their military might was unmatched in the sector. They believed that the system of order and discipline that had sustained them would continue to do so, as long as the people could be kept in line. They underestimated, however, the will of the people and the growing desire for change. It was into this world of grandeur and simmering unrest that Robot Guilliman would eventually be born. Before his arrival, however, Makridge was a planet at a crossroads. The great houses that ruled the planet were as powerful as ever, but cracks were beginning to show in their authority. The foundations of their power were built on the backs of the laboring class, and as that class grew more discontented, the more fragile the old order became. Across the eastern fringe, Mackridge was seen as a world of immense potential. Its rulers had forged a society that was both strong and disciplined, its armies among the finest in the galaxy. Yet, beneath this strength, there were seeds of weakness. The ruling families were increasingly consumed by their rivalries and personal ambitions, while the growing unrest among the laboring class threatened to upset the balance of power. Mackridge's early history was, in many ways, a reflection of the larger human experience in the galaxy. It was a world of contrast, of wealth and poverty, of power and weakness, of grandeur and decay. Its people were hardy and industrious, shaped by the harsh realities of life on the fringes of the galaxy. They had forged a civilization that valued order and discipline above all else, but that civilization was built on a foundation that could not endure forever without change. It was only a matter of time before Mackridge would face a reckoning, one that would ultimately transform it into the heart of Ultramar, the bastion of the Ultramarines. But before that transformation could take place, the old order would have to fall. And the catalyst for that change would be the arrival of a Primarch, a being of incredible power and vision, who would reshape not only Mackridge but the destiny of the entire galaxy. The stage was set for Robot Guilliman's rise to power, but before his arrival, the world of Mackridge remained a place of great beauty, potential, and hidden turmoil. The early days of Mackridge were the calm before the storm, a period of history that would soon be overshadowed by the coming of a new era, one that would see the planet rise to heights of glory that none could have foreseen. Robot Guilliman was not born in the natural sense, but created, like his brothers, by the Emperor of Mankind in a grand and secretive experiment to craft 20 superhuman sons, the Primarchs. Each of these Primarchs would be the genetic heirs to the Emperor himself, created to lead the legions of Astartes, the Space Marines, in his great quest to unify the galaxy under the banner of humanity. However, before Guilliman or his brothers could serve the Emperor's purpose, tragedy struck. As the Emperor worked within his gene laboratories deep beneath the Imperial Palace, the forces of chaos reached out from the Immaterium, seeking to undermine his grand designs. The ruinous powers, ancient beings of malevolent intent, feared the Emperor's plan and saw in the Primarchs a threat to their dominion over the galaxy. With a savage strike, they tore open a rift in space, sending the infant Primarchs scattered across the stars. In this moment, Robot Guilliman, still unborn in any conventional sense, was ripped from the Emperor's side and hurled through the warp, only to find himself deposited on a distant world, Mackridge. Unlike many of his brothers, who would find themselves on hostile or alien worlds, Guilliman's fate was more fortunate. He landed in a well-ordered and prosperous land, though still a world with its own set of challenges. When his arrival was discovered, it was by Konar, one of the rulers of Mackridge, a nobleman of great vision and integrity. Konar found the infant Guilliman in a gleaming pod of unknown origin, deep within the wilderness of his domain. Instantly recognizing the divine nature of the child, Konar took him in, adopting him as his own son and heir. From the moment Guilliman arrived, it was clear that he was no ordinary child. He grew at a prodigious rate, both in body and in mind, developing far faster than any human child. By the age of 10, Guilliman possessed the physicality and intellect of a fully grown man, and more than that, his innate brilliance had already begun to shine through. He was a natural leader, capable of organizing people and resources with an efficiency and wisdom that astonished even the most seasoned of Mackridge statesmen. Guilliman's early education was one of the finest available on Mackridge. He was tutored in the arts of governance, strategy, economics, and philosophy, all of which he absorbed with an insatiable hunger for knowledge. But while he was a scholar of great repute even in his youth, it was in the practical realms of warfare and statecraft that Guilliman truly excelled. From a young age, he studied the military traditions of Macrage, mastering the art of command and the nuances of war. His mind was a tool of precision, analyzing the needs of his people and devising plans that would elevate Macrage to new heights. As Guilliman matured, it became increasingly clear to the people of Macrage that he was destined for greatness. His rule was marked by an extraordinary sense of balance. He understood the needs of the nobility, who had long governed the planet, and the desires of the common folk, who toiled to support Macrage's growing power. Under Guilliman's influence, the society of Macrage began to transform. He instituted reforms that improved the lives of the lower classes, ensuring that they shared in the prosperity of the planet's abundant resources. Infrastructure was modernized, cities were expanded, and trade flourished. Guilliman's hand touched every aspect of life on Macrage, and in each case it brought improvement and progress. But while many of his reforms were met with approval, there were those among Macrage's elite who saw Guilliman's rise as a threat to the old order. Chief among these was Gallen, the co-ruler of Macrage and a man of sharp ambition. Gallen had long held power alongside Coner, and while he paid lip service to the ideals of duty and honor that had shaped Macrage, he harbored a deep jealousy of the young Primarch. As Guilliman's reforms took hold and the people's loyalty shifted increasingly to Coner's household, Gallen began to plot. In the shadows, Gallen whispered of rebellion. He gathered to his side those nobles who felt threatened by Guilliman's rise, promising them that they could reclaim their old privileges if they stood against the young reformer. Under his leadership, a conspiracy began to take shape, one that would soon threaten to tear Macrage apart. Meanwhile, Guilliman remained unaware of the full extent of Gallen's treachery. He continued his work, tirelessly striving to improve Macrage's standing among the stars. His greatest desire was to see his world rise not just as a place of strength, but as a beacon of hope and civilization. He envisioned a world where justice and order reigned, where the people prospered under wise and fair governance, and where the horrors of war would be fought not for selfish gain, but for the greater good of all. As the years passed, Guilliman's legend only grew. His physical prowess was unmatched, and in battle he was a force of nature. Though Macrage was largely peaceful, there were occasional conflicts with neighboring systems or marauding alien races that sought to plunder the wealth of the planet. In these skirmishes, Guilliman led Macrage's forces to victory time and again, demonstrating not only his skill in warfare but his ability to inspire loyalty in those who fought under his command. His presence on the battlefield was awe-inspiring, and his soldiers believed him to be invincible, a belief that would be proven true in countless conflicts to come. However, the storm was brewing. Gallen's conspiracy was nearing fruition, and even as Guilliman's popularity grew, the seeds of rebellion had already taken root. When the moment came, it came with sudden and violent force. Gallen's faction, armed and ready, launched a coup against Coner's government. The streets of Macrage's twin cities ran with blood as the nobles' private armies clashed with the forces loyal to Coner and Guilliman. Coner, though a wise and just ruler, was not a warrior. When Gallen's forces attacked, he was taken by surprise, and though he fought valiantly, he was ultimately struck down, killed by assassins loyal to his rival. Guilliman, however, was not so easily defeated. With the fury of a Primarch, he rallied the loyal forces of Macrage and led them into battle against Gallen's armies. The battles that followed were fierce and bloody, but Guilliman's genius for strategy and his superhuman abilities turned the tide. One by one, Gallen's supporters fell, their armies shattered and scattered before the might of the Primarch. In the end, Guilliman personally confronted Gallen in the halls of power, where the traitor had sought refuge after his defeat. The confrontation was swift and brutal. Guilliman offered Galen a chance to surrender, to face justice for his crimes. But Galen, blinded by his hatred and jealousy, refused. He drew his blade and attacked. The duel that followed was brief. Guilliman, though young, was already a warrior of unparalleled skill, and Galen was no match for the Primarch. With a single, decisive stroke, Guilliman ended the rebellion, striking Galen down and securing his rule over Macrage. With the coup defeated and peace restored, Guilliman was hailed as the savior of Macrage. He had avenged Connor's death and crushed the forces of tyranny that had sought to plunge the world into chaos. But while the victory was his, it was a somber one. The rebellion had left deep scars on the planet, and the loss of his adoptive father weighed heavily on Guilliman's heart. Yet even in this time of grief, Guilliman resolved to honor Connor's legacy by continuing the work they had begun together. Under Guilliman's leadership, Macrage entered a new golden age. The reforms he had started were expanded, and the planet's infrastructure grew ever more advanced. The people, inspired by their Primarch's wisdom and strength, worked harder than ever to build a civilization that would stand the test of time. Macrage flourished under Guilliman's rule, becoming not only a military power but a center of culture, learning, and governance. The seeds of Ultramar, the realm that would one day encompass 500 worlds, were sown in these early years. But even as Macrage prospered, far greater forces were moving in the galaxy. Guilliman's destiny, and that of Macrage, was not to remain bound to a single world. The Emperor was coming, and with him, the future of humanity would be forever changed. With the fires of rebellion quenched and the traitorous Galen slain, Robot Guilliman stood as the uncontested ruler of Macrage. Yet, despite his victory, the planet remained fractured in more ways than one. The coup had exposed deep divisions among the people, not only between the nobles and the common folk, but also within the ruling class itself. Macrage was in desperate need of unity, and Guilliman understood that if the planet was to rise from the ashes of conflict, it would need more than military might. It would need a new vision for the future. Guilliman's first task was to secure peace and stability. In the aftermath of Galen's defeat, he took swift and decisive action to eliminate any lingering threats to his rule. The remnants of Galen's supporters were hunted down, tried, and punished according to their crimes. Those who had directly participated in the rebellion were executed, while others who had been manipulated or coerced into aiding Galen were given the opportunity to repent and reintegrate into society. Guilliman's justice was firm but fair, aimed at restoring order without sowing the seeds of future unrest. With peace restored, Guilliman turned his attention to the deeper, more insidious divisions that had allowed the rebellion to take root in the first place. Macrage society had long been dominated by a rigid class system, with the noble families enjoying vast wealth and power while the common people toiled in their shadow. Though Connor had been a benevolent ruler, even his policies had failed to address the growing resentment among the lower classes. Guilliman, ever the visionary, recognized that true unity could not be achieved through force alone. It would require sweeping reforms that addressed the underlying inequalities of Macrage society. Guilliman's first major reform was the restructuring of Macrage's political system. Under his guidance, the old feudal order was dismantled. The power of the noble families was curtailed, and a new meritocratic system was put in place. Positions of authority and influence would no longer be determined by birthright, but by ability and service to the greater good. Guilliman believed that every citizen of Macrage, regardless of their background, had the potential to contribute to the planet's success, and he sought to create a society where talent and dedication were rewarded above all else. This radical shift in governance was not without resistance. Many of the noble families, who had grown accustomed to their privileged status, viewed Guilliman's reforms as a direct threat to their power. They whispered of rebellion, of restoring the old order, but Gilliman was prepared for such dissent. With the support of the people, who had long yearned for a more just and equitable society, he moved swiftly to quash any opposition. Those nobles who refused to adapt to the new system were stripped of their titles and holdings, their lands redistributed to those who had proven their loyalty to the new regime. Others, seeing the futility of resistance, begrudgingly accepted their diminished status and turned their efforts to serving Gilliman's vision for the future. As Mackridge's political structure was reformed, so too was its economy. Gilliman implemented a series of sweeping economic policies aimed at improving the lives of the common people. Trade was encouraged and expanded, infrastructure projects were launched to improve the planet's transportation and communication networks, and agricultural production was modernized to ensure that Mackridge could sustain its growing population. The wealth generated by these initiatives was redistributed more equitably, ensuring that the prosperity of the planet was shared by all its inhabitants, not just the privileged few. Education also became a central pillar of Gilliman's reforms. He understood that for Mackridge to truly flourish, its people would need to be well-educated and capable of thinking critically about the challenges they faced. Schools and academies were established across the planet, offering education to citizens of all classes. These institutions not only taught the practical skills needed to support the planet's growing economy, but also instilled a sense of civic duty and loyalty to the greater good. Under Gilliman's guidance, the people of Mackridge became not just workers and soldiers, but citizens invested in the success of their world. As these reforms took hold, Mackridge began to transform. What had once been a planet divided by class and strife was now a unified and prosperous society. The old divisions between the nobility and the common folk faded, replaced by a shared sense of purpose. Mackridge cities grew larger and more advanced, its people healthier and better educated, and its economy stronger than ever before. Under Gilliman's rule, the planet flourished, becoming a beacon of civilization in a galaxy racked by conflict and decay. But Gilliman's ambitions did not end with the unification of Mackridge. He saw in his planet the potential for something greater, a realm of worlds united under a single banner, each working toward the common goal of human advancement. Mackridge's success, he believed, could be replicated on other worlds, spreading order and prosperity across the stars. It was this vision that would lead to the creation of Ultramar, the vast empire of 1,000 worlds that Gilliman would one day rule. To achieve this, Gilliman began to look beyond Mackridge's borders. The neighboring systems were fractured and weak, ravaged by wars and piracy, their people living in fear and poverty. Gilliman saw an opportunity to bring these worlds into the fold, to offer them the same peace and prosperity that Mackridge now enjoyed. But he knew that this would not be achieved through diplomacy alone. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and any attempt to expand Mackridge's influence would inevitably be met with resistance. Gilliman began to prepare his people for the wars that would come. He reformed Mackridge's military, transforming its armies into a disciplined and highly trained force capable of both defending the planet and projecting its power beyond its borders. The military reforms were accompanied by the creation of a fleet of warships, designed to carry Gilliman's forces across the stars and into the neighboring systems. These ships, sleek and powerful, became symbols of Mackridge's growing might, and their presence in orbit above the planet signaled the beginning of a new era. As the military grew in strength, Gilliman began to reach out to the neighboring worlds. Some, seeing the prosperity of Mackridge, welcomed his offers of alliance and integration. Others, more fearful of losing their independence, resisted. In these cases, Gilliman's forces moved swiftly and decisively, subduing the opposition with minimal bloodshed. Gilliman's genius for strategy and warfare ensured that his campaigns were efficient and effective, and in a matter of years, Mackridge's influence had spread across the region. By the time the Emperor of Mankind arrived on Makridge, Guilliman's realm had already grown into a small empire in its own right. The planet stood at the heart of a growing network of allied worlds, each contributing to the greater good of the whole. Guilliman had become not just a ruler, but a statesman and a strategist of unparalleled ability. His vision for a united, prosperous realm had been realized, and his people hailed him as a savior and a god in the flesh. Yet even as he stood at the height of his power, Guilliman's thoughts turned to the stars beyond. He knew that his work was far from finished, that the galaxy was filled with countless worlds still in need of unification and order. When the Emperor came to Makridge, Guilliman knelt before him, not as a subject, but as a son. He saw in the Emperor a kindred spirit, a leader with the same vision for humanity that he himself had nurtured. And in that moment, Guilliman knew that his destiny was not to rule a single world, or even a small empire, but to lead the Imperium of Man in its greatest quest, the unification of the entire galaxy. As Robot Guilliman's domain on Makridge flourished and the realm he had forged expanded into neighboring systems, the galaxy beyond remained a turbulent and hostile place. The Imperium of Man, led by the Emperor, waged a massive campaign of reconquest known as the Great Crusade, reclaiming the lost worlds of humanity and uniting them under a single banner. Guilliman, deep in his ambitions for a unified sector of space, was unaware that his destiny would soon intertwine with that of the Emperor and the Imperium he led. It was in the height of Guilliman's consolidation of Ultramar, during a period of expansion and diplomacy, that an event occurred which would forever change the course of his life and the galaxy. On a day like any other, as Guilliman attended to matters of governance and planning within the capital city of Makridge, an extraordinary object appeared in the skies. A vast, golden vessel, larger and more magnificent than any ship seen before, descended from the heavens. It was a warship of incredible design, gleaming with sigils of power and emblazoned with the mark of the Imperium. The people of Makridge gazed in awe as this great vessel entered orbit. Its arrival sent shockwaves through Guilliman's court and beyond. Despite his confidence and his empire's strength, Guilliman was well aware that this ship, adorned with banners of the Emperor, carried within it powers greater than any he had yet encountered. He knew that this was no ordinary envoy. It was the arrival of something far more momentous. Descending from the ship came a figure resplendent in golden armor, flanked by a retinue of warriors clad in gleaming power armor, bearing the marks of the Legio Custodes, the Emperor's personal guard. At their head walked a being whose presence alone caused the air to hum with power. This figure was the Emperor of Mankind, the master of humanity's fate, who had long been guiding the Great Crusade to reunite the fractured human worlds across the stars. As the Emperor approached, Guilliman's soldiers and advisors looked on in awe and fear, but Guilliman himself strode forward with confidence. He had heard tales of the Emperor's might, whispered stories of the superhuman figure leading mankind, but even those legends could not fully capture the reality of the being standing before him. The Emperor's mere presence exuded authority, wisdom, and unimaginable power. Guilliman knelt, not as a subject, but as a son recognizing the father he had never known. For although Guilliman had risen to power through his own merits, there was something deep within him, something intrinsic that recognized the Emperor not merely as a ruler, but as the one to whom he owed his very existence. This moment was more than the meeting of two great leaders. It was the reunion of a father and his lost son. For the Emperor had not come to Makridge by chance. Guilliman, like his brothers, was one of the Primarchs, scattered across the galaxy during the dark days of the Horus Heresy. Each Primarch had been sent to a distant world, raised by foster parents, unaware of their true origins as the Emperor's sons and the gene-forged leaders of his armies. Now, after long searching, the Emperor had found Guilliman, the Primarch of the 13 Legion, the Ultramarines. The Emperor spoke to Guilliman, revealing the truth of his origins and his purpose. Guilliman, like his brothers, had been created to serve as a leader and warrior, to lead the Emperor's legions in the reconquest of the galaxy. He had been designed to embody the best traits of humanity: wisdom, strength, and a keen sense of justice. In that moment, Guilliman understood why he had always felt different, why his intellect and abilities had always set him apart. He was no mere mortal. He was one of the Emperor's chosen, destined for greatness. Yet the Emperor did not come merely to claim Guilliman as his son. He came to offer Guilliman a place by his side in the Great Crusade. The Imperium needed the talents and leadership that Guilliman possessed. The Ultramarines, the 13 Legion, had long awaited their primarch, fighting valiantly across the stars but incomplete without their leader. Now, with Guilliman's ascension to his rightful place, the 13 Legion would become the Emperor's sword and shield, spreading the light of the Imperium to the darkest corners of the galaxy. Guilliman, though proud of what he had achieved on Macridge, saw the enormity of the Emperor's vision and understood that his destiny lay far beyond the confines of his homeworld. He accepted the Emperor's offer, pledging his loyalty to the Imperium and swearing to fight for the unification of all humanity. His realm of Ultramar would become not just a single sector, but a cornerstone of the Imperium's might. The formal unification of Macridge with the Imperium was an event of great significance. In a grand ceremony, Guilliman was officially recognized as the Primarch of the Ultramarines. The people of Macridge, witnessing the grandeur of the Emperor and his legions, were filled with awe and reverence. The Emperor was no mere ruler. He was a godlike figure, and Guilliman, their leader, was revealed to be his divine son. This revelation further solidified Guilliman's rule, as the people of Macridge saw that their leader had been chosen by the Emperor himself to guide them into a new age of glory. The Ultramarines, already renowned for their discipline and efficiency, were transformed by Guilliman's arrival. Under his leadership, they became the epitome of what a Space Marine Legion could be: organized, strategic, and utterly devoted to the Emperor's cause. Guilliman implemented new doctrines and strategies that would come to define not just the Ultramarines, but the entire military structure of the Imperium. His genius for logistics and governance was unparalleled, and he began to reshape not just his legion but the broader Imperium itself, creating systems of governance and administration that would stand the test of time. Yet even as Guilliman embraced his role within the Imperium, he did not forget the realm he had built. Ultramar, the empire he had forged from the systems surrounding Macridge, was integrated into the Imperium, but it retained a unique identity. Guilliman's vision for a stable, prosperous realm persisted, and under his rule, Ultramar became a shining example of what the Imperium could be at its best. The worlds of Ultramar, well-governed and self-sufficient, provided the Imperium with both resources and warriors, and Guilliman ensured that his realm would continue to thrive even as he led the Ultramarines in the Emperor's crusade. As the Emperor and Guilliman worked together to integrate Macridge into the Imperium, a deep bond of respect grew between them. The Emperor recognized in Guilliman not only a capable warrior but a brilliant administrator and a visionary leader. Guilliman, for his part, admired the Emperor's vast intellect and unwavering determination to unite humanity under a single banner. Together, they represented the finest qualities of the Imperium. The Emperor's divine authority and Guilliman's practical wisdom combined to form an unstoppable force. Yet, even as Guilliman ascended to his rightful place as a Primarch of the Imperium, he knew that the galaxy remained full of challenges. The Great Crusade was far from over, and countless worlds remained in the grip of anarchy, Xenos threats, or worse. Guilliman's task, and that of his Ultramarines, would be to bring order to these worlds, to spread the Emperor's light and ensure the survival of humanity in the face of the galaxy's many dangers. Thus, with the Emperor by his side, Guilliman embarked on the next stage of his journey, not as a mere ruler of a single planet, but as one of the greatest generals and statesmen the Imperium would ever know. His unification with the Emperor marked the beginning of a new era for both the Ultramarines and the Imperium, one defined by Guilliman's vision of a unified, prosperous, and enduring human civilization. With Robert Guilliman now united with his father, the Emperor of Mankind, the next chapter in his journey was the full command of his legion, the 13th Legion, known henceforth as the Ultramarines. The Emperor had forged this legion during the earlier stages of the Great Crusade, drawing from the best genetic stock humanity had to offer. As with all the legions of Space Marines, the Ultramarines were created from the genetic template of a Primarch, and even before their meeting, Guilliman's gene seed had already shaped these warriors into paragons of discipline, strength, and order. The 13th Legion, though it had been active during the Crusade before Guilliman's discovery, had yet to reach its full potential. Without their Primarch, they had operated under capable commanders and performed their duties with efficiency. Yet they lacked the singular focus and unity that only a Primarch could provide. The Emperor knew that Guilliman would bring structure, vision, and purpose to the Ultramarines, molding them into an unparalleled force that would serve as a backbone of the Imperium's military might. When Guilliman took command of the Ultramarines, he immediately began to reshape and refine the Legion. His natural brilliance for governance, strategy, and logistics translated seamlessly into his military leadership. Guilliman saw the Space Marines not just as warriors but as tools of long-term stability, capable of bringing lasting peace and order to the worlds they conquered. He believed that war was not an end in itself, but a means to build a better civilization. Under his guidance, the Ultramarines would come to embody this philosophy. At the heart of Guilliman's vision for the Ultramarines was an emphasis on discipline, duty, and adaptability. Unlike some of his brother Primarchs, who fostered unique and often volatile cultures within their legions, Guilliman sought to instill a rigid structure within his forces, one that was governed by laws and codes of conduct. Every Ultramarine was trained not just to be a warrior but also a leader, capable of making independent decisions when required and capable of thinking not just tactically but strategically. Guilliman wanted his legion to be self-sufficient, capable of functioning autonomously in any situation. One of Guilliman's first major reforms was the organization of the Ultramarines into chapters, subdivisions of the Legion that could operate independently or as part of a larger force. Each chapter was led by a seasoned commander who had the authority to carry out campaigns as needed, but was also bound by a strict code of honor and duty to the Imperium. This flexibility allowed the Ultramarines to conduct multiple campaigns simultaneously, spreading the Emperor's light across vast sectors of the galaxy without being tied down by the need for constant central command. Guilliman also placed great emphasis on the importance of education and intellectual development among his warriors. To him, a Space Marine was not simply a brute soldier but a thinker and a planner. He ensured that each Ultramarine was versed not just in warfare but also in history, culture, and governance. The Ultramarines were expected to rule the worlds they conquered with wisdom and fairness, maintaining order and stability long after the battles had ended. This philosophy of governance, which mirrored Guilliman's own approach to ruling Ultramar, became a defining feature of the 13th Legion. Their role was not just to fight, but to build, to govern, and to guide humanity toward a better future. The Ultramarines also became masters of logistics under Guilliman's tutelage. He understood that victory in war often hinged on the effective use of resources, the timely arrival of reinforcements, and the careful planning of campaigns. He drilled this understanding into his legion, ensuring that they excelled in the coordination of supply lines, the management of territories, and the rapid redeployment of forces. His reforms allowed the Ultramarines to maintain a state of constant readiness, always prepared to launch new offensives or defend their holdings with equal precision. As Guilliman's reforms took root, the Ultramarines began to grow rapidly in size and power. Gilliman had a deep understanding of the importance of recruitment and training, and he established a rigorous system for bringing new recruits into the Legion. Drawing from the worlds of Ultramar and beyond, Gilliman ensured that only the best and brightest were selected to join the ranks of the Ultramarines. These new recruits underwent intensive training, not just in combat but in leadership, strategy, and governance, ensuring that they could uphold the high standards of the Legion. The worlds of Ultramar became an integral part of this process. Each world in Gilliman's realm was expected to contribute to the Ultramarines, either through recruits or resources. The integration of Ultramar's population into the Legion's support structure further strengthened the bond between the 13 Legion and the civilian populace. It was a mutually beneficial relationship. Ultramar provided the Ultramarines with the best soldiers and the resources they needed to carry out their campaigns, and in return, the Ultramarines protected and governed the realm with a fairness and wisdom rarely seen in the wider Imperium. Gilliman's focus on governance extended beyond his own Legion. He began to influence other parts of the Imperium as well, sharing his ideas for organization and strategy with his brother Primarchs and with the Emperor's own administrators. His Codex Astartes, a treatise that would one day become the foundational document for the Space Marine chapters of the Imperium, began to take shape during this period. It laid out Gilliman's vision for how Space Marines should conduct warfare, organize themselves, and govern the territories they conquered. Although the Codex would not be fully realized until after the Horus Heresy, its early principles were already influencing the Ultramarines and, through them, the wider Imperium. As the Ultramarines continued to expand and conquer new worlds, their reputation grew. They became known not just for their prowess in battle, but for their ability to bring lasting stability to the worlds they liberated. Gilliman's vision of a better, more unified galaxy began to take shape, and the Ultramarines became the living embodiment of that vision. Their campaigns were marked not by the wanton destruction seen in other legions, but by careful planning, swift and decisive victories, and a clear focus on rebuilding and stabilizing the regions they brought under Imperial control. The Ultramarines' reputation also extended to their treatment of the people they conquered. Unlike some other legions, which ruled through fear and intimidation, the Ultramarines governed with a sense of fairness and justice. Gilliman believed that the Imperium could only thrive if its citizens were loyal, and loyalty could only be achieved through mutual respect. The worlds under the Ultramarines' protection flourished, and their populations became some of the most devout and productive citizens in the entire Imperium. Yet even as the Ultramarines thrived under Gilliman's leadership, the galaxy remained a dangerous place. Xenos threats, rogue human empires, and other dangers lurked in the dark corners of the cosmos. Gilliman knew that his Legion must remain ever vigilant, ready to face any challenge that came their way. He continued to refine and perfect the Ultramarines, ensuring that they would be prepared for the trials ahead. Thus, the Ultramarines became the Legion that Gilliman had always envisioned: disciplined, efficient, adaptable, and utterly loyal to the Imperium. They were not just warriors. They were leaders, builders, and statesmen. Their ideals of duty, honor, and service to the Emperor set them apart from other legions, and their commitment to the long-term stability of the Imperium became their defining trait. In the years that followed, the Ultramarines would be called upon to fight in some of the most important campaigns of the Great Crusade, their strength and discipline proving invaluable in the Emperor's quest to unite the galaxy. And through it all, Gilliman's guiding hand remained ever present, ensuring that his Legion remained true to its ideals, even in the face of the greatest challenges the galaxy had to offer. As the Great Crusade unfolded across the galaxy, the Ultramarines stood poised to play a pivotal role in the Emperor's grand design. The Crusade aimed to unite humanity under the banner of the Imperium, eradicating the myriad threats posed by Xenos races, rogue human factions, and the remnants of the Age of Strife. With Robot Gilliman at the helm, The Ultramarines became the embodiment of the Emperor's vision, characterized by their unwavering discipline, strategic brilliance, and commitment to the ideals of order and civilization. Under Guilliman's leadership, the Ultramarines set out on their first major campaign during the Great Crusade, embarking on a series of expeditions that would solidify their reputation as one of the most effective legions. Their approach was defined by meticulous planning and execution, often characterized by swift strikes against enemy worlds, followed by efforts to integrate the local populations into the Imperium. The success of these campaigns was a testament to Guilliman's belief that conquest should not only involve military might, but also a focus on governance and stability. The first significant campaign took the Ultramarines to the world of Graia, a planet rich in resources but beset by the brutal orcish hordes that threatened to overwhelm the human settlements. Guilliman quickly recognized that a direct assault on the orcs would likely lead to heavy casualties, so he devised a clever strategy that involved employing the planet's own defenses against the invaders. Rather than simply attacking, the Ultramarines rallied the beleaguered human populations and began a campaign of guerrilla warfare against the orcs, utilizing the planet's terrain to their advantage. They struck swiftly and decisively, disrupting the orc supply lines and drawing them into traps that capitalized on their overconfidence. As the orcish forces became increasingly disorganized, the Ultramarines launched a full-scale assault, coordinated with local militias and the Imperial Army. The well-drilled Ultramarines fought with ferocity and precision, shattering the orc warbands and reclaiming Graia for the Imperium. Guilliman's ability to integrate the local human populations into his plans and harness their resources proved invaluable, solidifying their loyalty to the Emperor. The victory at Graia set a precedent for the Ultramarines, showcasing their unique approach to warfare, which emphasized not only military prowess but also a deep respect for the peoples they sought to protect and govern. Buoyed by this success, the Ultramarines turned their attention to a series of campaigns in the Eastern Fringe, a region teeming with Xenos threats and warlike factions. The first target was the world of Cato, a planet inhabited by the native human population enslaved by the cruel Tau Empire. Recognizing the potential for liberation, Guilliman crafted a strategy that involved a two-pronged assault. One part of the force would engage the Tau directly, drawing their attention and resources, while a second, stealthier contingent would slip behind enemy lines to inspire a rebellion among the oppressed human population. The operation was executed flawlessly. As the Ultramarines clashed with the Tau forces, they demonstrated their mastery of combined arms warfare, coordinating the firepower of their battle tanks, heavy support units, and infantry to devastating effect. Meanwhile, the stealth element of the Ultramarines infiltrated key locations, spreading the word of the Emperor and igniting a fervent desire for freedom among the enslaved humans. When the moment was right, the Ultramarines unleashed a coordinated assault that turned the tide, driving the Tau from the planet and restoring it to Imperial governance. Each victory brought more worlds under the banner of the Imperium, and the Ultramarines soon found themselves at the forefront of a massive push toward the galaxy's core, liberating planets and expanding the Emperor's reach. They became known not just for their military might, but for their ability to bring stability to war-torn regions, turning newly acquired worlds into loyal subjects of the Imperium. Guilliman emphasized the importance of building a legacy on each liberated world, ensuring that the Emperor's ideals were spread through education, governance, and infrastructure development. The Ultramarines transformed from mere conquerors into builders, nurturing the worlds they claimed and instilling a sense of loyalty among the populace. The Ultramarines' reputation grew with each campaign, and they quickly became one of the most recognized and respected legions of Space Marines. Their successes caught the attention of the Emperor and other Primarchs, who began to admire their unique approach to warfare and governance. They began to model their own strategies on Guilliman's, recognizing that victory in the Great Crusade was not merely about subjugation but about creating a lasting peace for humanity. As the Great Crusade continued, the Ultramarines faced increasingly formidable foes, including the ferocious Eldari and the insidious forces of chaos. In one memorable campaign against the Eldari, the Ultramarines found themselves on the brink of annihilation. The Eldari, masters of hit-and-run tactics, harried the Ultramarines at every turn. However, Guilliman refused to back down. Drawing upon his tactical genius, he devised a cunning plan to lure the Eldari into a trap, using the terrain of a desolate moon to ambush their forces. The Eldari, believing themselves to be invincible, fell into the trap, and the Ultramarines achieved a hard-fought victory that showcased their adaptability and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Throughout the Great Crusade, the Ultramarines also established a network of alliances with other Imperial factions, such as the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Imperial Navy. These relationships allowed the Ultramarines to coordinate their campaigns effectively, ensuring that their logistics and supply chains remained robust. The cooperation with the Mechanicus proved particularly advantageous, as they gained access to advanced technology and weaponry, further enhancing their combat effectiveness. The bond between the Ultramarines and the Mechanicus would lay the groundwork for future collaborations that would define the Imperium's military prowess. The Ultramarines' relentless expansion and the positive relationships they forged with newly liberated worlds marked them as a beacon of hope within the grimdark universe of Warhammer 40,000. Their approach stood in stark contrast to other legions that operated with brutality and terror, and many began to view them as the exemplars of the Emperor's will. However, the growing influence and success of the Ultramarines did not go unnoticed. Other Primarchs, particularly those with a more aggressive and ruthless disposition, viewed Guilliman's approach as soft. The seeds of jealousy and rivalry began to sprout among the legions, leading to an ever-deepening divide in the Emperor's vision for the Imperium. While the Ultramarines continued to expand the Imperium with honor and integrity, not all the legions shared their ideals, setting the stage for the tragic events that would follow. As the Great Crusade progressed, Guilliman found himself increasingly burdened by the weight of responsibility. The further the Ultramarines pushed into the galaxy, the more complex the challenges became. It was not just about conquering worlds. It was also about holding on to them, fostering loyalty, and maintaining the balance of power among the other legions. Guilliman was keenly aware that every victory came with the potential for future conflict, both within the Imperium and beyond its borders. Despite these challenges, the Ultramarines flourished. Their victories became legendary, and they earned the respect of the Imperium as a whole. They were no longer just a legion of space marines. They had become a symbol of hope, a testament to the Emperor's vision of unity and strength for all of humanity. As they continued to expand the Imperium, the Ultramarines solidified their legacy as one of the most significant forces in the galaxy, destined to play a crucial role in the unfolding drama of the Horus Heresy and the fate of the Imperium itself. As the Great Crusade progressed and the Emperor's vision for a united Imperium began to take shape, Robert Guilliman turned his attention to the vast expanse of Ultramar, a region comprising 500 worlds nestled in the eastern fringe of the galaxy. This cluster of planets, known for its fertile lands, rich resources, and diverse human populations, had long been isolated, managing to fend off external threats during the tumultuous age of strife. Yet, under the rule of various warlords and local factions, the systems of Ultramar lacked true cohesion, plagued by internal strife and disunity. Recognizing the potential of these worlds to contribute to the Imperium, Guilliman devised a grand plan to bring Ultramar to heel. He understood that the key to success lay not just in military might, but in fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose among the inhabitants. His vision was clear: to create a realm where the Emperor's ideals could flourish, and where the disparate worlds could find common ground under the banner of the Imperium. To initiate this monumental task, Guilliman gathered his most trusted advisors and strategists, forming a council dedicated to the compliance of Ultramar. This council included not only the senior officers of the Ultramarines, but also representatives from the local human populations who had been liberated during earlier campaigns. Their insights were invaluable, as they provided critical knowledge of the political landscapes, cultural nuances, and existing power structures within the 500 worlds. The first step in the compliance process involved the establishment of a base of operations on Makridge, the home planet of the Ultramarines. From this stronghold, Guilliman dispatched a series of emissaries and diplomats to the surrounding worlds. These envoys, composed of seasoned Ultramarines and local leaders, were tasked with negotiating treaties and agreements, seeking to unite the planets through diplomacy rather than outright force. Their approach was one of respect and understanding, aiming to show the inhabitants that the Imperium was not merely a conquering force, but a protector and unifier. The emissaries made great strides in their efforts. On the planet of Nostromo, where a once thriving civilization had been ravaged by the horrors of the Age of Strife, they brokered peace with the remnants of the ruling houses. Guilliman's representatives extended an olive branch, promising to restore order, protect the citizens from external threats, and provide the resources necessary for rebuilding. The message was clear. The Imperium sought not to impose its will, but to guide the people of Nostromo toward a brighter future. As the emissaries made progress, Guilliman also recognized that some worlds would require more direct action to ensure compliance. For instance, the planet of Alicia had been seized by a violent warlord known as Kargan, who ruled with an iron fist and had no intention of submitting to the Emperor's authority. Aware of the potential for conflict, Guilliman prepared the Ultramarines for a swift and decisive military campaign. The Ultramarines, known for their tactical superiority and unyielding discipline, were ready to liberate the planet from Kargan's tyranny. The assault on Alicia was marked by precision and coordination. Guilliman implemented a strategy that emphasized the element of surprise, using the Ultramarines' superior speed and firepower to catch Kargan's forces off guard. The battle began with a bombardment of the warlord's stronghold, crippling his defenses and sowing chaos among his ranks. As the dust settled, the Ultramarines advanced in disciplined formations, pushing deep into enemy territory. Kargan, realizing his forces were no match for the elite Space Marines, attempted to flee but was ultimately captured in a daring raid by a squad of assault Marines. With Kargan defeated, the Ultramarines established a new governing body on Alicia, composed of local leaders who had resisted Kargan's tyranny. They worked alongside the Ultramarines to restore order, secure the loyalty of the population, and integrate the planet into the growing Imperium. The successful campaign not only expanded the Imperium's reach, but also demonstrated to the inhabitants of Alicia the benefits of compliance, fostering goodwill among the people. As word of the Ultramarines' victories spread, more worlds began to submit willingly to the Emperor's rule. The citizens of planets like Proxima and Caelestis, once wary of outside influence, saw the transformation taking place in Alicia and grew inspired. Diplomatic missions flourished, and compliance treaties were signed in record numbers. The people of Ultramar began to see the Emperor's vision of unity as a path to progress and prosperity. However, not all worlds accepted this new order with open arms. The planet of Talia, rich in resources and strategically vital, was ruled by a coalition of powerful merchant houses who viewed the Ultramarines as a threat to their autonomy. Rather than engage in negotiations, they fortified their defenses, preparing to resist any attempts at imperial control. Guilliman, ever the tactician, recognized that a show of force would be necessary to bring Talia into the fold. Rather than launching a full-scale assault, Guilliman opted for a siege strategy. The Ultramarines encircled Talia, cutting off supply routes and establishing a blockade. This approach aimed to demonstrate the futility of resistance while allowing the inhabitants a chance to reconsider their position. As weeks turned into months, the merchant houses grew increasingly desperate. Gilliman broadcast messages of hope to the citizens, emphasizing the benefits of compliance and the inevitability of imperial integration. Faced with dwindling resources and rising dissent among the population, the merchant houses finally capitulated. A delegation was sent to Mackridge to negotiate terms of compliance. Gilliman welcomed them with open arms, treating them not as vanquished foes but as partners in building a new future for Ultramar. The treaty signed on Mackridge marked a turning point in the compliance efforts, solidifying the Ultramarines' reputation as both conquerors and collaborators. With the successful compliance of Talia, the momentum continued to build. Planet after planet fell in line, and soon the 500 worlds of Ultramar began to coalesce into a unified realm. The Ultramarines facilitated this transformation through various means, establishing schools and institutions that promoted education, the Emperor's ideals, and a culture of loyalty and service. Gilliman understood that true unity required more than military might. It demanded cultural integration. He initiated the establishment of the Codex Astartes, a comprehensive guide detailing the principles of governance, military strategy, and the responsibilities of imperial citizens. This codex served as a foundation for the newly compliant worlds, instilling a sense of purpose and direction among the populace. It laid out the rights and duties of citizens within the Imperium and promoted a vision of strength through unity. As the compliance of Ultramar progressed, Gilliman sought to forge alliances with other Imperial factions, recognizing that the strength of the Imperium lay in its diversity. He worked closely with the Adeptus Mechanicus, who provided advanced technology and support for the burgeoning infrastructure across the 500 worlds. The relationship proved mutually beneficial, allowing the Mechanicus to expand their influence while providing the Ultramarines with the means to enhance their military capabilities. Meanwhile, the Imperial Navy became increasingly involved in the compliance efforts, ensuring that the newly integrated worlds were secure from external threats. Gilliman established a network of starports and trade routes, facilitating commerce and communication throughout Ultramar. This infrastructure not only strengthened the economy, but also fostered a sense of unity among the planets, linking them together in a web of mutual reliance. As the last of the 500 worlds fell under Imperial rule, Gilliman stood on the steps of the newly constructed Palace of Mackridge, surveying the realm he had built. The once disparate planets had transformed into a cohesive part of the Imperium, united in purpose and loyalty to the Emperor. The compliance of Ultramar was not merely a military campaign. It was a testament to Gilliman's vision, demonstrating that conquest and collaboration could coexist. The success of the compliance of Ultramar resonated throughout the galaxy, sending ripples of hope to other systems still mired in chaos. The Ultramarines became a beacon of stability amid the turbulent expanse of the galaxy. Their triumphs echoed the Emperor's ideals, inspiring other factions to seek a similar path toward unity and strength. As the Great Crusade continued, the Ultramarines prepared to face new challenges, ever vigilant in their mission to protect humanity and uphold the Emperor's vision for a united Imperium. Yet, lurking in the shadows, the seeds of dissent began to sprout within the Imperium itself. The rise of other Primarchs and their legions, each with their own ideals and ambitions, would soon challenge the fragile balance that Gilliman had worked so hard to establish. The stage was set for the unfolding drama that would lead to the greatest conflict the Imperium had ever known, the Horus Heresy. But for now, the Ultramarines stood proud, having forged a legacy that would echo through the annals of history, a legacy of unity, strength, and unwavering loyalty to the Emperor. As the Great Crusade progressed and the Ultramarines solidified their dominance over the 500 worlds of Ultramar, Robert Gilliman recognized the need for a structured and coherent doctrine that would serve not only as a guide for his legion but also as a foundation for the future of the Adeptus Astartes. The galaxy was vast and fraught with peril, and the challenges ahead would demand a level of organization and strategy that transcended the traditional practices of warfare. Thus, the concept of the Codex Astartes began to take shape in Guilliman's mind, a strategic masterpiece that would redefine the nature of Space Marine chapters and their role within the Imperium. The Codex Astartes was envisioned as a comprehensive text that would encompass every aspect of the Astartes' existence, from recruitment and training to tactics, strategy, and governance. Its creation was driven by a singular goal: to ensure that the lessons learned through the experiences of the Ultramarines and their campaigns would not be lost to the ages, but instead would serve as a guiding light for future generations of Space Marines. Guilliman understood that the Imperium was entering a new era, one where adherence to a rigid set of principles and strategic thought would be essential for survival. Guilliman began the arduous process of compiling knowledge from countless sources, drawing upon the experiences of his own legion, the history of the Imperial Army, and the ancient teachings of the Emperor. He convened a council of his most trusted advisors, including veteran Ultramarines who had fought alongside him in numerous campaigns. Together, they gathered in the Grand Hall of the Palace of Makridge, poring over battle records, strategic analyses, and philosophical texts. Every lesson learned from victories and defeats was scrutinized, debated, and incorporated into the emerging framework of the Codex. The Codex Astartes was structured in a manner that reflected the hierarchy and organization of the Ultramarines themselves. It delineated the different roles within a chapter, including the positions of the chapter master, captains, lieutenants, and sergeants, providing clarity on the responsibilities and authority of each rank. This hierarchical structure emphasized the importance of discipline and order, which were fundamental to the identity of the Ultramarines. At its core, the Codex Astartes was not just a military manual, it was a philosophical treatise. Guilliman infused it with the values he believed were essential for any Space Marine. Honor, loyalty, and duty were not mere words. They were the foundation upon which the very existence of the Astartes was built. He articulated a code of conduct that outlined the expectations of each Marine, ensuring that every member of the Legion understood their purpose and the importance of their service to the Emperor and humanity. One of the most significant sections of the Codex Astartes was its detailed examination of tactics and warfare. Guilliman recognized that the Astartes operated on a different level of warfare than the Imperial Army. Their enhanced capabilities, combined with their training and equipment, allowed them to engage in operations that would be impossible for regular human soldiers. The Codex laid out a series of tactical principles, detailing formations, strategies for various combat scenarios, and guidelines for coordinating with Imperial forces. The focus on adaptability and flexibility was a hallmark of the Codex Astartes. Guilliman stressed that no two battles were the same, and thus, the ability to respond to changing conditions on the battlefield was crucial. He introduced the concept of combined arms warfare, encouraging the integration of various units, infantry, armor, and artillery, to create a cohesive fighting force capable of responding to any threat. This emphasis on coordination became a defining characteristic of the Ultramarines, allowing them to execute complex maneuvers with precision and effectiveness. Another groundbreaking aspect of the Codex Astartes was its approach to the organization of Space Marine chapters. Recognizing that the Astartes could not operate as a single monolithic entity, Guilliman proposed the idea of dividing the Ultramarines into smaller, independent chapters. This decision stemmed from his understanding of the vastness of the galaxy and the numerous threats it faced. Each chapter would retain the core tenets of the Codex while adapting to its unique environment and challenges. This decentralized approach ensured that the ideals and tactics of the Ultramarines could be replicated across the galaxy, creating a network of chapters that could respond to crises in a coordinated manner. To facilitate the implementation of the Codex Astartes, Guilliman established the first chapters based on the Ultramarines, creating a new legacy that would endure throughout the ages. The first of these successor chapters included the White Scars, Raven Guard, Iron Hands, and Salamanders. Each of these new chapters was charged with upholding the principles outlined in the Codex while carving their own identities and traditions. This approach fostered a spirit of camaraderie and mutual respect among the chapters, while also reinforcing the importance of the Codex as a guiding document. As the Codex Astartes took shape, Guilliman's commitment to the ideals contained within it became unwavering. He personally oversaw its dissemination among the ranks of the Ultramarines, ensuring that each Marine understood its significance. Training programs were established to teach the principles of the Codex, and Guilliman would often conduct lectures and discussions with his officers to reinforce the philosophy and strategies contained within the text. The impact of the Codex Astartes was profound. It transformed the way the Ultramarines conducted warfare, elevating them from simply being elite soldiers to strategic thinkers. With the Codex as their guide, they became adept at not only engaging the enemy but also understanding the larger context of their actions within the Imperium's goals. Each battle was seen as a piece of a larger puzzle, contributing to the overall mission of the Great Crusade. As the Ultramarines continued their campaigns across the galaxy, the Codex Astartes became a beacon of hope and unity. Other Imperial factions began to take notice of the successes of the Ultramarines, and many sought to adopt similar principles within their own ranks. The Codex inspired a wave of reform throughout the Imperium, leading to the establishment of doctrines that prioritized organization, strategic thinking, and collaboration among various military branches. Guilliman's vision for the Codex Astartes extended beyond the confines of the Ultramarines. He sought to instill the values of honor, loyalty, and duty throughout the entire Imperium. In time, the Codex would be revered as not just a military manual but a foundational text that would shape the very identity of the Adeptus Astartes. It became a symbol of what it meant to be a Space Marine, an embodiment of sacrifice, honor, and unwavering dedication to the Emperor's cause. However, even as the Codex Astartes spread its influence, the galaxy remained a dangerous and unpredictable place. The ever-growing darkness in the form of traitors, Xenos, and demonic forces posed a constant threat to the Imperium. Guilliman understood that while the Codex provided a framework for victory, it could not replace the courage and determination of the Astartes in the face of adversity. As the Great Crusade pressed on, Robert Guilliman remained vigilant, ensuring that the principles of the Codex Astartes were applied on every battlefield. He forged alliances with other factions within the Imperium, reinforcing the importance of a unified approach to the challenges ahead. With each victory, the legacy of the Codex Astartes solidified, becoming not just a document but a living testament to the resilience and strength of the Ultramarines. The galaxy was a vast tapestry of conflict and chaos, and the Ultramarines, armed with the teachings of the Codex, stood resolute against the tide of darkness. They became the embodiment of Guilliman's vision, a force of order amidst the anarchy, dedicated to the protection of humanity and the realization of the Emperor's dream for a united Imperium. The Codex Astartes would echo through the ages, a guiding light for all who bore the mantle of the Astartes, even as new threats emerged on the horizon and the shadows of treachery began to creep ever closer to the heart of the Imperium.